Hello everyone and welcome back, and first of all, Happy New Year's, Happy 2020. You're probably watching this way later, but oh well. Thought I'd say it anyways. What I just want to do, this is going to be a really quick part, so this one won't take any time at all. I decided let's just get this guy over with in its own individual sort of part, and then we can take care of the keyboard and all the internal stuff separately, so I can sort of have a break to sort of think about how we can approach that. Right now, let's just get this guy over with since we weren't able to finish him in the last part. So he should be simple, and I'm referring to this part that's sticking out with the screws and the sort of twisty part, as well as this circle in the back. The circle in the back is going to be a bit interesting because there's no reference. I've checked all the 3D models, I've checked all the images, there's no reference or angle that can possibly show us the other side of this. So we're going to have to sort of keep that open for now, and then we'll see how everything else is laid out, like the keyboard, maybe something attaches to it, but for now we'll keep the other side pretty simplistic. Maybe just round it off and keep it smooth. It seems like something that spins. There's obviously a ball bearing in there. But I'm not entirely sure what it'd be used for. So anyways, we'll keep that in mind as we work on it, and we can go ahead and dive in. One other thing that I want to do in this part, which is super quick, is just weld these two pieces together so we get a nice soft transition between the two. Of course, this takes no time at all. All I'm going to do is grab these pieces, stick it in a little bit, and then we can just sort of go for a boolean, but this time we're going to use union, and new boolean operation, cleanup, delete history and base objects, and now it should be attached. So I can grab a vertex, and it'll kind of be one. I guess these guys are still going to exist, so let's go ahead and delete these and just clean it up as much as we can. Same with this loop here. It's not going to let us select it very easily just because it has a bunch of weird verts going on, but okay, we got that. I kind of just want to push this forward and then, yeah, fill hole on this. I'm definitely missing something here. Let's continue to clean this up and just get rid of any of these unnecessary vertices first. See how it's doubling up in a lot of places. Just by snapping these back to where they're supposed to be. And then we can merge. And interesting. I wonder if I can bridge. And very interesting. Okay. Well, regardless, this geometry is going to be gone when we bake it. I suppose this is how it's supposed to be, actually. Yeah, having this covered up wouldn't make a lot of sense, actually. Okay, we'll leave that as is. Give it a few more anchor points by connecting some of these guys so it doesn't really freak out on us since we did such a weird boolean. Nice. So that guy's attached now. So now if I just hit 3 to smooth, very crude example. I suppose that isn't smoothing how I expected, but it's because we still have some of these vertices here. It's also something that's going to be fixed in Zbrush when we do Dynamesh, because what Dynamesh does is kind of average out the entire surface and add a smooth, it kind of rebuilds the mesh but evenly quadrified across the entire thing, so it'll obviously make up for this stuff here, which is super nice. So that's exactly how it should be for this stage of the process. We can go back to focusing on this guy over here. So I found a couple references. This is definitely the main one. It's good because it's to note, or lets us know rather, that it seems to be welded on, so we're going to have to do something similar on this side. This piece also kind of pushes forward and back. It was kind of hard to tell from this one if it was like stuck on or attached in a different way. It shows 2 screws, this sort of grippy, twisty part that has this texture to it, which we're going to be making. I'm on the fence about whether we should model it or if we should do it in a texture. Let's start by modeling. I know with stuff like this where you sort of have to wrap it around, it can be a little bit finicky. So if it turns out to be a little bit too time consuming, we can easily replace that with a material. Just because baking this down is so, like, barely any information is going to be stored because it's such a tiny piece in the grand scheme of things. So it's like it might just be easier to make a texture for that because it's a pretty simple pattern. And then the circular thing. So very quick part today. Like I said, we already have the basic shape of this, and this isn't attached. So I'm just selecting these faces and pulling it off. And let's shift right click and extract the faces so it's its own separate mesh here. We can center the pivot, freeze transforms, delete history. And I'm going to do something similar with this guy. Let's extract the faces on this so we can deal with them one at a time here. So we don't want it right on the edge. It seems to definitely be inset a little bit. Not by a ton, but something like that. And we can move our pivot over here. Snap it into place. For this one, rather than doing a Boolean, I'm just going to go to our cut tool, the Control-Shift-X. And just cut around like so. Interesting. Okay, that's not the smoothest cut, but you see what I'm getting at. I'm essentially making a square around it. Merge those vertices. Let's see. Yeah, I got 2 really close here. But let's go ahead, snap these guys on. We can go ahead and now delete that face and combine these 2 meshes. Mesh, combine. We can merge the vertices. And now these should all be attached. Nice, so let's go close it off. Seems that we definitely have faces on top of faces here. So what I'm going to do is delete all that, and let's just start by bridging instead. So just going to bridge that there. We can do one on this side. We can go up, and we can go down. And then from there, oh, interesting. So this was never welded in the first place. Okay, this is actually good that we caught this. I'm gonna go ahead and delete these bottom ones. The top ones can stay. I'm gonna fill that hole though. But yeah, with this guy, this rectangular piece was never welded to begin with, so we're gonna have to sort of accommodate for that. I'm gonna start by grabbing this edge at the bottom. Well, actually first I'm gonna get rid of this. I'm gonna merge that up. But what I'm gonna do is grab this edge and extrude up. I'm going to stop it here and add a cut. So what we can do from here is snap these vertices. We don't want anything to just be floating on top of something else. Everything has to be connected. So I'm merging these guys, so now they're attached. And now we should be able to fill this hole. Interesting, there's still some sort of issue. Oh, the bottom, I didn't connect the bottom. Let's get rid of this. Something more like that would be correct. So now if I double click this ring, it's still going down here. Is it because this isn't connected to anything? Yep. I gotta add a vertice here and stitch it to something. Snap that into place. There we go. We're in a proper, almost proper selection. What's going on here now? Same thing. Gotta anchor this down somewhere. And fill hole now. Okay. So now that's all connected. Which means, if I'm not mistaken, this side should probably have the same issue. Yeah, these definitely are not connected, but we know what we're doing now, so this should be a lot quicker. Let's just cut out a rectangle and close it off. Delete these faces. Sort of simplify this a little bit. Merging everything. Snap that there. Snap there. Snap there. And that should take care of all of that. Nice. Okay, so now we can finally get to the part that we're actually meant to do. Which is this guy, which he's now stitched on, which is great. Let's mimic this shape a little bit more by sort of adding an edge loop in near the top. I'm trying to get this sort of small chamfer-like soft transition. So pull this up a little bit. And it almost like plateaus at a certain point. I'm going to try and bevel that. Very small though. The top stays consistent though, so what I'm going to do with these guys is snap them forward. I just want them to be straight. We just want this part to curve a little bit more. We can go ahead and merge those vertices. I also think the angle's a little bit lower. I'm just kind of toying with this. Maybe pull this up a little bit. Something more like that. I still feel like something's off about it. Maybe it's too high of an angle, it's too long, or it might just be too big. I also think we gotta fatten it up a little bit. It seems to be a little bit thin compared to this guy. It's more chunky like that. We'll go with that and continue on to the next part, which is going to be this guy. I think I might as well just delete it actually, and it would be easier to just extrude out. So yeah, this guy extrudes out. He's also definitely thicker, so we're gonna have to hit extrude, Control E to bring this guy out a little bit. I'm gonna fill this hole. Yeah, and we can snap these verts over. They're just gonna give us a headache if we leave them like that. Merge all that up. And then I also think it's a bit taller. So, we're gonna have to extrude to get that. It's not by much, but it's definitely coming down more here. So I'll just get it to mirror on both sides. Snap these guys as we did before. And then of course we're gonna have to curve it. Control B. Got some very funky stuff going on. Let's obviously take care of that first. Right, we should probably snap these. It's gonna make our lives a lot easier. Anytime you sort of have like a bunch of edges going into one vertice and it's at a point and you try to bevel that, it always causes some kind of problem. So now we can go for that smoothness. I'm just going to, pull the fraction to 1, bump up the segments to something like so. Yeah, and that should be fine. I think what was off is that this should probably be a little bit thicker. I could even pull this up a little bit. Okay, that's starting to look a lot better. Let's scale this in a little bit. And we can start on some of these cuts. So the first thing we're going to have to do is add 3 cuts, one for screw, and the sort of knob that's going through. So that should be pretty easy. Now that I look at it, it seems like this screw is going through directly to this guy. So this is going to be a full puncture. This one I'm not going to puncture all the way through, and this one I am. It's just something to keep in mind, seeing exactly how everything's connected. Create polygon primitives. Cylinder. So we're going to use this guy a couple times. So this hole I'm going to make a bit smaller because we can have the screw actually sticking out. Okay, there's one. I'm going to get this screw in next because this one seems to be level with it. To get this perfectly into place, once again, we can poke face with a shift right click, poke face. I'm going to duplicate this guy and just snap it up there. rotating him, of course, thinning him out. And then duplicating again, rotating this back, dropping it, and shrinking it down. Now with this guy, like I said, I'm not going to puncture to the other side. I'm just going to give it a bit of a cut through. I'm making sure it doesn't go into where the other Boolean is cutting into here. Just because the geo is going to get a little hectic at that point. But at this point, we can merge these three guys, freeze transforms and history on both of these pieces, and we can get our Boolean underway. So click, shift click. Actually, I'm going to delete these X's first. Yeah, click, shift click, and make sure on difference this time. Cutting it through, clean, delete history and base objects. Maybe there was too much going on, maybe we had a hole in our mesh, but it seems that it didn't work exactly as we wanted to, so we're just gonna have to bridge things across. Doesn't take too much time. With this guy, we have to extrude and fill hole, and then up here, bridge. Okay. Yeah, so it just didn't connect the pieces, but it's a very, very easy fix. We've done it a couple other times. So that's that. Let's start adding in these screws. So these are all a bit different. The small one I'm just going to borrow from here. But I definitely kind of want to shake it up a little bit this time. Seems that our scale is set to object. Let's put that back onto world. Cool, that's one. For this screw, let's try a different one. I know we used a different one somewhere on here, but I'm just going to open up my different screw options. I'm going to use this flathead one. I think it matches it pretty well. Okay, this is pretty perfect. I'm also going to make it red. And just sort of snap it into place. And then the one going through the top, you could just honestly put a cylinder through there, but I'm looking over here and I'm like, these look pretty close. I kind of just want to put something like this in there. Rotations are all off. Let me just... snap this into place. Of course, you can just use the screws that you've already made. Like, they're more than enough. But I'm just going to sort of switch it up and add some different stuff in here. Nice. Let's go ahead and make this bottom piece. Like I said, we're going to try and do this pattern, but if it takes more than like 5 minutes, it's not worth it because we can easily do that inside of Painter. Seems to have some sort of tube sticking out that then widens out and turns into this. So let's grab another cylinder. This one's going to work perfectly because it's the same amount of segments as what we used our Boolean with. So it's going to fit very snug. Seems to sort of go in and then out again. Of course, we're going to bake this down, so I don't mind using the extra geo right now. I'm going to extrude it in, just scaling it in like so. And then extrude out in such a way like this. can even pull this down a bit and bevel that so it's a bit smoother. From here, grab these guys and extrude out like so. We're just trying to get this larger circumference now. I'm just going to pull that down a bit so we don't have any Z fighting where there's two faces directly on top of each other. And then we can extrude that down to the full size of whatever this exactly is. Something like so. Yeah, okay. So there's a couple ways we can do this, and we can use some of the plugins we installed. There's like ways where you can just sort of guess at it and figure it out, but one cool trick that we have at our disposal here, I'm just going to auto smooth that, is if you remember at the start we installed, I think it's edge to spline, which I think is this one. So I just selected that edge loop, we turn it into a spline. Super easy. From there we have a tool that tells us how long the spline is exactly. If I can remember which one, I think it's this one. Yeah, the curve length is 4.169 whatever centimeters. So what I'm going to do is just take a little screenshot of that and put that here so we can remember that number. And this is going to be important because we can essentially, for this pattern, lay it flat out on a plane and then curve it. And as long as it's close to this measurement, when we curve it back into a cylinder, it's going to be perfectly connected. So let's try and make it 4.17. We can even aim for having it at 4 and then just sort of fudge it a little bit. So that's how long it is. That doesn't help us too much with the height. I guess we can just sort of do the exact same process again, where we take a spline, grab the height, which is 0.8, copy that, just pasting it in PureRef. If you're wondering what I'm using for print screening, I'm using Lightshot. It's actually super useful. It lets you drag selections and just sort of save it. You can draw on it. And combining that with PureRef is super powerful. So we know the two dimensions of those. We can round them to 4 and 1. So what is this information useful for? I can go to create polygon primitives and a plane, and as you can see, it is 1 by 1 by 1 centimeter. It's done a pretty good job of giving us some different segments. I'm going to change these to like 20, so we double up on them. And we're just going to sort of experiment here a little bit, but essentially, if we grab every other vert, like this, right, and we raise it, we're kind of getting this diamond pattern. So let's take a little bit of time to try this out. There really is no magical there's really no magical way to do this. Other than we could do it for like one row and then just duplicate it over. So let's try that. Just grabbing every other vertice. Let's raise that up a little bit. So we're creating a bit of a diamond pattern. Probably easier to see if we harden the edges. But yeah, let's go ahead and just chop everything we don't need right off. And in theory, if we duplicate this over, no, I chopped too much off. Okay, so I've solved the mystery. I know I said I wasn't going to spend a lot of time on this part, but we spent a lot of time sort of going over new tools, and I think this is a really useful thing that we can actually sort of go over right now. Making these patterns and wrapping them around and having these sort of hard surface yet organic geometric patterns. It's also good for material making as well. Realistically, faster to do in Painter, but cool things to learn nevertheless. So let's go ahead and make this pattern, and I'll show you guys how to wrap it around. Let's delete this. Let's once again bring in the plane. So by default, 1 by 1 centimeters, 10 subdivisions. That's totally fine. We're gonna have to modify it a little bit though. Before I was trying to use just the squares to make the shape. We're gonna have to make diamonds. So just using the cut tool, just tracing out some diamond shapes. And we're gonna have to go through the entire thing and do this, but there is a bit of a shortcut that I'm gonna show you guys. We can essentially just make one row and duplicate it over. It's gonna be much, much faster that way. So yeah, I'm just gonna take this row of faces and smart duplicate. We just move our pivot to the corner here and line them all up. So duplicate, snap over, duplicate, snap over, and one more time. And then delete the big guy underneath. Combine this all. Merge them all. And what we have to do now is select the center of every diamond and raise that, including the ones on the edge here. This is what's going to give us that sort of lifted pattern shape. I don't know why I was trying to get it with the square. Not really the best approach. Some of this stuff, though, takes a bit more pre-planning. And when you're sort of recording these tutorials, and something like this pops up, you kind of want to solve it on the spot, when typically the best way to do something like this is just to set aside a bit of time and really think what's the best way to go about it, what's the actual solution. Yeah, there's no like set time limit, right? So let's raise these guys up a little bit, and you can see we're getting this diamond shape. One thing I do want to do though is, as you can see, it's more vertically stretched, so I'm going to stretch this out vertically. And now it should also tile perfectly. So if we duplicate this over, it should all connect. So let's do that. And the great thing about this is we know the exact dimensions we want this to be, since we got those from the curves. So we can create a new polygon primitive plane. Let's go ahead and get rid of these subdivisions for convenience sake, and we can make the width the 4.169, I'll just round it to 3, and then the height is the 0.83. So let's take this guy and snap him down here. Let's mesh combine all of these ones, merge the verts. Move the pivot to the corner, and we can just sort of shrink this down and get like a rough size of it. Something along those lines, and then we can just cut this off. It does seem like the pattern's much more fine here. So what I might do is, yeah, delete these faces, but then duplicate this around everywhere. Combine them. And then, if my math is correct, I should just be able to shrink this to 0.25, 0.5, and it should be the same. Okay, I just wanted the pattern to be a bit more fine. And with it being pretty much the same shape, I'll show you guys how we can now wrap this around. this was actually really good. I'm glad we had to do this part because, as you can tell, I was definitely a little bit rusty with how this was done. As I was experimenting, I added a line here just so we have a spot to snap. If you're wondering why that's there, we will be deleting that though. So let's freeze transforms and delete history on this guy. And we're going to be using our first deformer. Deform, nonlinear, and bend. It's going to add this line here. And we can go into the bend inputs, go to curvature, and just sort of pull that up to 180 degrees. I'm just moving my middle mouse to do this, of course. It's going to kind of move things a little bit, but not by a lot. And that's because we have to rotate this curvature down so it knows that we're trying to curve it open and close like this. Super useful tool. So now we have our ring with that pattern on it. We can then select it, freeze transforms, delete history, which will get rid of the deformer. Center the pivot on that guy, and let's get it into position. Gonna snap it to the bottom here. Snap it to this edge that I added in. And as you can see, it's like super snug on there. It's exactly how it should be. Maybe off by a little bit since we were kind of fudging with the numbers. But we can extrude that out. And yeah, we can definitely work with that. Now, the big question is how are we going to connect these two? I'm just going to assume that this lip here means it's a different piece. It's going to make it as easy as possible for us. Oh wait, let me merge these guys. There we go. So we can just sort of fill a hole on the top. Do the same on the bottom. Might as well poke face. And then from there, all we really have to worry about is pulling this up. Well, first deleting these two vertices. Yikes, okay, let's do this one step at a time. I need to delete this edge and pull these verts up. We can then snap this to the top. I'm even going to pull this out a bit so it has a bit of a lip. And that should be our twisty part. To have a nice grip on it. Modeled that. Looking good. And then I kind of want something on the bottom. I kind of just want to smart duplicate this. Fill these holes. And just something like that. It seemed a little bit weird, just having this sort of like spiky rim on the bottom. So maybe I should cover it. And I'm going to combine these two. Okay, so we went over a lot. Let's go ahead and save. And yeah, we can focus on this last part, which should be much simpler. Very similar to some of the stuff we've done on the ends here. Let's get a cylinder inside of here first. I'm going to use this one as the scale, even though the other one's a bit of a clearer reference. This is 20 subdivs, or 20 edges rather. Let's turn this up to 30. 32, yeah. Just so we can sort of work with this a bit easier. Let's get this guy into position. Center the pivot, scale up. Yeah, so it is coming out of the center of that. And it's just behind this, which is perfect. Seems like something happened. Is this not lined up? I think I was just imagining that. Okay, so that's good. So yeah, I'm gonna make it a bit thicker by grabbing these faces, pulling this out a bit. But yeah, it's just a matter of hollowing it out, giving it this ring, putting a bearing in there, and that's gonna call it for this part. Let's make sure the scale is correct though. It seems to be a bit bigger because it's kind of even going over. This also seems to be a bit lower. So I'm going to grab these two. Do something more like that. Okay. Right, pull this out a little bit. And yeah, let's start mimicking this shape now. So it kind of extrudes in a little bit, so we're going to offset it after hitting Control E. Maybe 0.325. Then extrudes in very lightly. Then we extrude again, offset in a bit. Pull that in. We're gonna have to add an edge loop here to soften that out though. And then just this middle extrusion. Extrude again. Seems like it goes in subtly and then it hollows out for that bearing. I don't know if that bearing goes through to the other side for something though. That's the difficult part. And I can't quite tell. But yeah, extrude that in again. Because this is where the bearing is. Punch through. We're definitely going to have to make this thicker. So that we can push this in a bit more. Okay. Can even bevel this to give it more of that soft look. Sharpen this one up. Can even harden those edges to give that a bit more of a dramatic look. Right, now this bearing. Should be pretty simple. We're just going to put a bunch of spheres in there with a cylinder and a tube sticking through it. So let's start with the spheres. I'm going to isolate this guy. Freeze transform, delete history to keep it simple. Create polygon primitives sphere. And we can just snap that in the middle so we know it's centered. Shrink it down. Subdivs are fine because this is all going to be baked. We're not going to have any geo for this stuff in the final version. It's too small of a detail. Let's try and get the size of the bearings correct. Seems a little smidgen bigger than that. About so. And then this one I'm just going to do very manually. Just going to put the pivot in the middle. Control D, E, and just rotate that 180 degrees. Mesh combine. I know there's like a really easy way to do this with the smart duplicate, but it's just this way works fine as well. Mesh combine, and it's just much simpler. There's no math involved. So I'm just duplicating and rotating. Okay, sweet. So all of those are combined. They're definitely touching each other. We can fix that by using our move tool, changing it to normal, and pulling that in. It's going to lag for sure, but it'll get the trick done. So just be very gentle with it. Yeah, and that works fine. I'll change the move tool back to world. And that's that. Got those ball bearings in there. Let's get another cylinder. Can grab this ring, smart duplicate it, and fill those holes. Let's just sort of move that into position. Cool. With this though, we're going to have to extrude and sort of get these rings. So I'm just going to do multiple extrusions. And then the middle one, like this, I'm just going to push all the way through. I just wanted to get one ring here that I could pull out. And this is going to be good for when we do smooth it. It'll sort of give it this nice transition. A bit of like a hump or a groove or whatever you want to call it. But all we need to do is stick something through. We should be good. I do kind of want this to be closer. Like I wish this could go back further, because I don't want it to be as visible. But yeah, let's get a cylinder, plop that through. So I can even take this, smart duplicate the face, extrude it, make sure that this isn't inverted. Let's give it a different color so we remember it. Green is going to pop out quite a bit here. Slide it back into place. Scale it down a smidge. And just snap it into place there. And boom, that's the back. So yeah, the front is very boring. I think I might just add a bit of a chamfer or something, just so it's not like totally dead as far as the design goes. But like it has to be attached to something. There's no way that all of this would have these bearings and these spinning mechanics and this adjustable knob for no reason. I just don't know what exactly it's for. But yeah, we're done now. We're totally, like, we're 100% done with that and moving on to the keyboard now. So we'll figure it out. I gotta sort of do some more research onto the guts, but we just have the keyboard, this contraption, and the guts of things, and then we're moving into Zbrush. So we're definitely starting to get into the good stuff. I'm very happy with the progress so far, but yeah, I'm actually really glad I made this its own part. That took a lot longer than I expected. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. See ya.